Well, for myself, I feel that this is such a time where kindness is needed
Mm,
and unification is needed.
yes.
That as a world, not just in America, I am a New Yorker and an American, but I think in the world, there's become so many barriers between us all. And barriers in the way that we think about COVID, about vaccines, about the elections. There's just all these barriers erected. And what's astonishing to me is that this specific, topic of the elections has torn families apart, where they're not speaking to one another, literally, where they express a different opinion. And it is so upsetting to their family members. I mean, like parents or their siblings, that their siblings or their parents don't want to talk to them again. And what I see all of this as is it's a mirror and a reflection of the deepest fears. We have survival fears going on right now for the health of our bodies, for the health of our family. We have fear of the unknown going on, and no one gave us a manual. How do you deal with that? Then we have this COVID going on where people are losing their jobs, they're losing their livelihood, they're losing their homes. There's so many homeless in LA at the time that it's just, I mean, thousands, tens of thousands of tent cities of people who are homeless. And of course, these are primal survivor fears. And so then when it comes ideologically between, is it a blue state or a red state, we pin all of our fears, all of our devastation, our upset, all of our emotional pain gets pinned onto one side or the other, as if that side is going to save us from the whole thing, or the other side is going to save us from the whole thing. And the reason that there's so much division around this election between families, not just states, but between families, is because there's a belief that a certain ideology and a certain political system will get them through this time, and another political system will damage them during this time. And so I do understand that no one was given a manual. How do you deal with these most primal fears that are coming up? And that's why we attach them to these seemingly surface issues. And one of the things I'm just so grateful for is, I know you know this, but the journey was born from my own direct experience of healing from what was a basketball-sized tumor. And part of the gift of that healing in only 6.5 weeks' time was I found a method for all of us to go on a deep journey within our own bodies to get to these most core primal issues that are stored in our cells, and to go through quite a deep and radical process of release and letting go and understanding what's happened to you in your life and forgiveness, so that that old programming is completely cleared out. And when new cells are born, they're born devoid of that old consciousness as new regenerative cells. And is so important for people to understand what's really happening with their bodies, their beings, with their emotions, and with their external responses. And what science has found is that when you feel a strong emotion and you repress it, it releases a quantifiable biochemistry into the bloodstream, which will go to certain cell receptors and block them, rendering those cells incapable of communicating with the rest of the cells in the body. And if over time illness happens, it happens where the cells are blocked. And conversely, what's also known to be true is when we feel our emotions very openly and freely, like a child does, very naturally, our cell receptors remain open. And so these old repressed issues, these old repressed emotions, release that biochemistry, go to the cell receptors, and that cell memory gets stored inside the cell. That old programming gets stored inside the cells. And before that cell dies, it passes on that old programming to the next cell generation. So the next cell generation is born as an exact replica of the previous cell generation. And this programming goes on our whole life long. And so this is going on at a subterranean level. We're not even aware this is going on. And then something as drastic, life-changing as COVID happens. And we're in lockdown and we're in shutdown and our buttons are being pushed. We're feeling out of control. We're feeling helpless. We don't have the answers. We don't know if we're going to have a job. We don't know if we're going to have a marriage by the end of this, and life is pushing our buttons. And so inadvertently up are coming these big, strong emotions, fear for our livelihood, fear for our life. And now we're taking those emotions and attaching it to one political ideology or another political ideology, so much so that someone wins an election and people are protesting in Washington that person hasn't won the election. That has never happened in the past. And it's because it's almost as if that political ideology, party is a lifeline to our safety. And the only thing that we can literally put all of our eggs in one basket. And so we get invested and we'll break our families apart if our families try to take away what we believe is our safety. And so when I hear competing ideologies to my own ideology and competing opinions, these days, I feel nothing but compassion. I know that as the louder it gets, the more compassionate I feel. I know that this surface extreme response is born from a deep emotional pattern that was not met, that we didn't have the tools to clear. And so what I do when someone spouts out their ideology is I listen and I welcome them to share some more. And then I listen some more. And I welcome them to share some more. And when they are completely empty and have spouted all of their anger, their upset, their aggression, all of it's come out, I ask now that that's all out of the way and I've really heard you. What is it you're really feeling? And that's when they burst into tears. I'm out of control. I have no control in my life. I don't know how I'm going to take care of my kids, how to keep them safe. And then the real issues are met. And then those are what's surfacing. So these days, I'm almost what I would call opinion free. I just see everything that's happening, and it's so volatile right now. And it is so separating, and it is so divisive. My job is to listen. And once it's all wound down, I'm not interacting with opinions anymore. I'm just open to listening to what's really driving that extreme surface reaction. And so what I'm so grateful for with the journey is it gives you a method to go on your own journey inside your body and uncover the real truth of what is driving your surface reactions, your surface behaviors, what's driving you to react in such an extreme way, which may not be typical of you. You may have noticed that your responses are not typical, they're atypical. And they are usually a way of defending against feeling something that's more devastating. And so the journey helps you get to the emotional root cause of what is presenting at the surface, and at that deepest level, at the cellular level, go through a deep process of release and letting go and understanding and forgiveness, so that when new cells are born, they're born devoid of that old consciousness as new regenerative cells. It also gives you a method for befriending your emotions and going deep within and finding a way back home to the truth inside, to the peace inside yourself. And the truth of the matter is, no matter how great the disaster, the crisis is that's going on in your life right now, there is a peace that underlies all of it. And I can speak from that experience because I too, I had a basketball-sized tumor in 1992. And when I healed from that in 6.5 weeks' time, then the next wave of crises happened where my house burned down in the mega fires in Malibu. And when I finally cobbled my life back together after that, then my husband of 20 years, who I thought was the great love of my life at that time, fell in love with a younger woman and left me for that younger woman. And in each and every case, it was as if life had pulled the rug out from under me. And I can remember when my husband told me he'd fallen in love with another woman and he had spoken to her about marriage. I remember walking out into the living room and I was just standing there. And this big mountain appeared in front of me that seemed so solid. This mountain called Brandon, me and my life. And that was kind of the final straw. I'd nearly lost my life with the tumor. I definitely lost my house and I was financially wiped out by the fires. The marriage, which was the one thing that I was certain of, was like a legendary romance. Had now the rug had been pulled out from underneath that. And as I looked at this solid mountain that seemed to represent who I am, it started to shake as if an earthquake was happening, and it turned into gravel, into so much dust. And I found myself free falling in abject terror. And everywhere I tried to reach to understand who I am, it's like I would reach out and I'm not a wife, and I'm not this marriage, and I'm not, my whole family's been broken apart, and I've nearly lost my life. I've lost my livelihood. I've lost my job. And as I was free falling in this terror, I suddenly became aware of what I was free falling in. And that there was this vast field of peace that was carrying me, holding me, a peace that had carried me through all the crises in my life. And that day, I decided I would make a marriage with that truth. Because the truth was, people come and people go, and lifestyles come and lifestyles go. Friendships come and friendships go, and marriages come and marriages go. Diseases come and diseases go. Bodies come and eventually bodies go. And then there was this peace that did not come and did not go. And that day, I decided to make a marriage with that peace. Because when all else had forsaken me, this peace is what remained. And so what I'm so grateful to the journey is, no matter how extreme the life crisis is that you're going through right now, you can find a peace that underlies the whole roller coaster, and it will carry you through this time. No matter how traumatic this time is. And the journey connects you in a direct way to that peace inside yourself. And so if you're finding you're in arguments with your family and there's a divisiveness around the election and there's all these arguments about COVID and conspiracy theories and vaccines theories, and it just seems like there's separation everywhere. My prayer is that you just recognize that life is giving you an invitation. And one of the things that the first book I wrote, The Journey, became an international bestseller, and millions have read that book. And during this time of COVID, I wanted to make it free and available to everyone. So not only you could learn this method, but that you could get the process work. And if you get onto thejourney.com, you can download that ebook free of charge, and you'll find out about other ways that you can work no matter what separation is happening for you during this crazy time we're living through. And so I just make that as my offering and to you, that it's time to roll up your sleeves. It's time to dive in. It's time to come home to the peace inside yourself and clear whatever's blocking you, whatever's holding you back on any level. And the journey will give you the tools